Hi everyone, welcome to our Warhammer 3 faction overview, where today we're going to look at the Mighty Dowie. Just going to go over kind of a brief overview of the roster. Their roster features very heavily armored and tanky units. The missile infantry hits really hard. They're going to be kind of your damage dealer to your army in general. And they also have really good artillery. Flying war machines are okay, but you don't need to use them. They're kind of much like the Empire, where they have a kind of a jack of all trades thing, but they have pretty good infantry as well. So like if you want to do a campaign with infantry only, you can do it. If you want to do a range only, you can do it. Artillery only might be a little bit of a struggle, but you can do it. Generally, I like to build balanced armies, but you don't have to build this army in particular. So like for instance, this is kind of like your normal, I would say a more normalish dwarf build that you might end up running into. You might making it yourself. With some variances, of course. I generally run with a Rune Lord and a Master Engineer, mainly because I like the Rune Lord's magic, and Master Engineer buffs the range and artillery a lot in the campaign. Obviously, we're doing a quick battle, so we're not going to kind of see those buffs, sadly. But yeah, I like to run 4 basic Dwarf Warriors with about 5 Quarrelers. You can tweak that number personally. If you could get Slayers kind of early, they're pretty good to have as your backup, kind of guard the artillery or plug any holes they need to. 3 Iron Drakes, 2 Gyrocopters, and then 2 artillery pieces. Generally, this is kind of probably one of the most balanced builds, because you'll pretty much chew up anything that can kind of get thrown at you, unless the enemies make an army to kind of counter you the hard way. But speaking of counters, pretty much the main Dwarf's weaknesses are armor piercing, other siege equipments, because they're kind of a slow moving faction, and maneuverability. Maneuverability is a big deal, especially in this game that AI likes to envelop you over time, which is not kind of good. If you like pulling defensive factions, this is probably one of the best, if not is the best defensive faction you could play. On the campaign map side of things, and we're going to kind of cover that, and when we cover the other sub-factions as well for their campaigns, is they generally have slow growth, kind of slow recruitment numbers. You can boost that number up, but it's 2 at a time to start. You can get that up to, I think, 4, maybe more. And kind of expensive units. You're not going to be feeling a lot of crazy armies early game. If you are, you're kind of going to be stuck. They do have a pretty good economy that really kicks in late early game to mid game, but pretty much early game it's just you gotta kind of balance between growth and income in order to start really getting your heavy hitting units. And for kind of the battle simulation, we're good just going against a kind of a log army. So first army just have a bunch of orcs, and the second army has a bunch of goblins. So that is kind of one of the main enemies you're gonna fight in most of your Dwarven campaigns are greenskins. Let's go ahead and start the battle here, and I'll show you some formation building. So when it comes to building your battle layout or formation layout, I generally do the classic checkerboard formation. So it's pretty much just you squeeze your infantry units kind of a column like this, and drag them over like that, which will leave small enough gaps to hopefully for the AI not to push through. Although they do have single entities or small numbers of monstrous units, they can kind of get through that. I put the Iron Drakes I kind of like to put the Iron Drakes a little close behind them, because Iron Drakes really don't care who's in front of them. They're a flamethrower. They're not going to care. And then for the Quarrelers, I go 3 behind, leave a little gap, put 2 behind. In case the front line fails or they get attacked on the sides, I'm always going to have a Quarreler or 2 firing at all times. Of course, you can use Thunders or Grudge Rakers. You don't really have to necessarily use Quarrelers. I like Quarrelers because if you get these weird maps where the line of sight becomes a big problem, at least you're not completely screwed. For artillery pieces, I like to put them in the back, obviously. Some matches you won't want to corner camp, some you don't. It's just easier to kind of do this against a log army. And kind of just slip them behind. Nice thing about grudge throwers, they don't really need line of sight problems. Obviously, I'm going to use my Slayers kind of to guard as best as I can. Guard the artillery pieces because that's going to be what does you the most damage. As I said, and hopefully you'll be able to witness this in the fight, the AI is going to try to go around and get through. I will use the Rune Lord kind of on both sides here, and kind of the Master Engineer on the side here as well. I could put them in the front here, but the Rune Lord's not that great of fighting, but he has the tankiness to kind of sit there and take it as well. Once again, this is just a battle simulation. This isn't campaigns, so nobody's as juiced up as they usually are. But that's kind of your standard dwarf-ish build. Obviously, some people have different builds. If you're going for a Slayer army or a range army, it's going to be a little different. But this army will pretty much be anything like mid or early to mid game, pretty much. It's when the enemies start bringing a lot of armor piercing, you might have problems with your front line. And I'd like to use kind of my gyrocopters as cav to kind of pick off the more dangerous targets if I can. But without further ado, let's start the battle here. So since the battle area got a little bit bigger, we're gonna kind of make our Slayers in a little bit better of a position, of course. Then we're gonna go hunt these guys down because sometimes the AI feels like they don't want to attack us. It's not a bad thing. We could just control group our entire army and just slide them over where we need to. They're just gonna move in really slow because it's gonna take the AI a second to figure out what's the weakest points here. You know you have a really good defense when you have the AI kind of just confused on what it should be doing. So we're gonna go ahead and target the orc big ones and the cav if we can. These guys really aren't too susceptible to fire because they have such high armor. Their weakness is when they get into melee combat, so like if there's a unit of fell bats or something, they will destroy your gyrocopters pretty easily. Then we're gonna have to grudge thrower target the orc boys. Back them out. Just try to get a couple good cheap hits off. You can Lord Snipe with the gyrocopters, sometimes it doesn't work out, it's not really worth the ammunition. I might do here is just kind of shift my forces a little bit so I can get a tiny bit of a better firing arc because they're going to come at us from both sides at the same time. This is a normal log army thing. They'll just sit here and wait for both armies to come out, but thankfully this is a simulated battle and we don't have to wait for that. You kind of want to aim your artillery pieces at swarms of enemies if you can help it. Then shift the Corlers over here because they're trying to hurt our Slayers a little bit. And if you see like really good targets where they're all close together, you can do a bombing run with your gyros as well. But we're not going to do that quite yet. We're going to wait till everybody's kind of situated before we do that. Because our doors are going to hold the front line for a good bit. Let's go ahead and get the artillery to start focusing on support targets. Pop that if we can. Get the reload skill going. And get some more AP. Hey, pretty much your Iron Drakes are just going to melt everything in front of you. We are going to move our Rune Lord over here to pop a spell of Wrath and Ruin, which is just an explosion magic. Nice thing about runic magic, you don't have to worry about wins, but you do have to worry about your timers. If you overcast your runic magic, it's even longer of a timer, and most of the time it's not really worth it. Let's see if there's any other juicy targets we can hit. Grudge throwers are pretty good at not friendly firing, but we're going to try to take our gyros here and start doing some bombing runs. Just be careful of friendly fire when you're on the front line. Yeah, I'm not going to engage with my slayers quite yet. They're kind of the plug in the army, but they're trying to be sneaky and get past us. Dropping our bombing run here. That, try not to inflict too many casualties. Looks like their lord is bullying our hero. Let's go help him out. Give them some speed and melee attack. A really nice thing about Quarrelers as well is they're really decent melee combatants. So once they get into combat, it's not the end of the world like your handgunners. And let's try to focus down some of their range if we can. The range is kind of annoying, but it's not that great. So like pivot this guy over a little bit. Throw focused artillery over there. But you notice how our Dwarf warriors are kind of losing all their fights, but they're just sitting here tanking it at, what is that, 55? I just don't want these Iron Drakes to be in combat. The AI likes to target them because it sees them as the biggest threat, sadly. And you kind of want to make sure you don't lose your gyrocopters as well, because one gyrocopter lost is like a lot of damage potential. But we're going to go ahead and throw Slayers over here because I see that we're about to lose our Slayer unit that's holding the line on this side.
Let's start shooting! Right far, right fast!
Got another spell ready, but we don't really necessarily need it. So I'm just going to pop the armor right here, because they don't really have armor piercing in this army.
Slayers! Iron Drakes! Gyrocopter!
Just kind of bully all their archers, because that's all they kind of have right now.
Master Engineer!
Pop the physical resistance on himself there. And Master Engineer does get a lot of restock as well, which is very nice for a kind of range-based army. You don't really have to build a dwarf like this, but it's more beneficial to have him be like this. Move the Iron Drake out of the way. And there you have it. We pretty much suffered minimum losses. Our front line got smashed pretty good. But you notice even at like almost like a core health, we still have over half the unit. That's kind of normal. Dwarves have pretty high health for their entity count as well. But you notice how none of our Quarrelers took any damage at all. Our Iron Drake saw a little combat, but not a whole lot of combat against pretty much two full armies. So these guys can hold out against a log on their own pretty well. Well, let's go look at the individual Dwarfs campaign and talk some smack about them. And you can just see the numbers here. Pretty much Iron Drakes will be your damage dealers for a while. Gyrocopters can be as well as grudge throwers. See that the infantry they did okay for what they had to do. They held the front line against pretty much, was it, almost 4,000 orcs total. So the first faction we're going to look at is Thorgrim Grudgebearer's campaign. He's kind of the main dwarf faction. Pretty much to start off with, like I said, they do have kind of slow growth, low recruitment numbers. 2, you can get that up to 3 or 4 in a province, I believe, with certain buildings. So pretty much when you're building your economics, try to balance out between income and growth. I would say that Oath Gold's not really that important early game. I would say start building Oath Gold buildings once your main pretty much income's doing good. You do get some income from the Oath Gold. From the Oath Gold, but not a whole lot. And pretty much how Thorgrim plays, he has 20 diplomatic relation with dwarves. upkeep minus 15% for Longbeards and Hammer units, recruitment rate +3 for Hammer units. All commandments have more powerful effects, gain High King Decrees, and you start off with a High King Decree, which is basically just a new mechanic for dwarves that are under cities, pretty much. Build one right here. Once you build it, it gives you access to pretty much like 6 additional building slots in the settlement. They do have a grudge mechanic called the Age of Reckoning, where pretty much all factions will build up grudges, and when you fight those battles, take those summons, or however you get them, it will build up this gauge, which will allow you to recruit better units and gain better buffs overall. This was a lot better than it was originally. When it originally came out, it basically made the dwarves like hyper aggressive, which was kind of a big problem because they weren't literally fast enough to do that. But all the great book sellers will be in here, which they're just different variations of their normal units. Usually better stats. You get your Trollhammer torpedoes here, which is probably the best gyrocopter in your roster. Probably one of the better units in your roster. It's just really hard to get because you get the final tier. After 15 turns, the game will ask you, hey, do you want to do another Age of Reckoning immediately or delay it? But you have to do 10 to 20% more grudges. Some factions will accrue it for more. Obviously, if it's a Dwarven settlement, it builds up more over time. And they also get access to the Great Book of Grudges here, which is just some campaign missions pretty much you got to complete. You do get some buffs if you do so. As you accrue more grudges, you'll get the option to confederate other legendary lords instantly. Just be in mind they are also building grudges, so it's kind of a race. Eventually you might beat them out, or unless they get destroyed early enough. And over here just kind of explains what else they have. They do get access to the Forge, which is pretty much a workshop where you can build a bunch of different magic items, inclinaries, runes. It's really strong, but it takes a lot of time because it primarily uses oath gold as well as rare resources, so keep that in mind. If you have a lot of trade partners, that'll kind of help that problem. So pretty much for Thorgrim's campaign, his initial enemies are pretty much greenskins and Skaven. Ironclaw orcs will become a problem. Queek Headtaker will become a problem. But you are friends with other dwarves in this area. And that's pretty much it. If you expand far enough, you'll be Khorne's problem, or potentially Tomb Kings. Most of the time, they're not really that mean for you. You do got Belegar, who starts way over here-ish. So it's a pretty easy faction for the dwarves. If you want to play a dwarf faction for the first time, this is the one to do it, because he has a pretty easy start. And then his items are Axe of Grimnir. Its bonus versus large +4, AP +12, melee 6. Income from battle loot, upkeep -5. The armor Skuldor, ward save +10. Wound recovery time -1, melee defense +6. Dragon Crown of Karaz, control +3 for all provinces, immune to psychology. Recruit rank for Longbeard units in its army, physical resistance +10%. And the Great Book of Grudges, which is another -5% upkeep for the Lord's Army. And passive Great Book of Grudges, melee attack +8 for all allies in range. Thorgrim Grudgebearer is a really tanky lord. He can kind of become a problem early to mid game, just because there's really no good way to take him down because he's so heavily armored even early game. Now on to Ungrim Ironfist's campaign. Pretty much, he's the hyper-aggressive fighter of the dwarves. He uses up slayers, so he's kind of the more offensive than defensive. He pretty much has construction cost -75% for slayer buildings, recruitment cost -50% for slayers, and speed 10% for all infantry. He also does have some good passives for said Slayer as well. Upkeep, reduction to melee attack, and passive Journey's End for Slayer units all in his army. He does start off next to a minor faction for dwarves. And Thorgrim somewhere over here in the distance. Pretty much his first enemies are going to be greenskins, more like the goblins. Potentially vampire counts. I've had some campaigns where they never touched me. Sometimes the tree folk, they expand outward. And then pretty much possibly more chaos doors or just chaos in general, as he's kind of on that border here. His campaign is pretty much, I would say, just as easy as Thorgrim's. It's just the fighting style is so much different. He does get the Slayer Crown, which is a control +5 for the local province. Ward save 10%. Recruit rank +1 for Slayers. Melee attack, melee defense. Dragon Cloak of Fire Scar. Let's say that right. Ward save 20%. Melee defense +5. Fire resistance 20. Wound time -1. An Axe of Dargo, which is upkeep -5% for the Lord's Army. And combat loot 10%. Recruitment costs -10%. Magical attacks, bonus versus large, and he gets a ability with that as well. Since he is a Slayer, he is unbreakable. And he's anti-everything. He pretty much, late game, can be a one-man army if you build him right. He is fast for a Dwarf too. All the other mechanics are pretty much the same though. So Age of Reckoning is still the same. Great Book of Grudge is still the same. Forge is still the same. The only difference is he's more of an offensive Dwarf. And then for Belegar Ironhammer's campaign, I don't really like his campaign first off. It's kind of gross. But pretty much he gets the upkeep +50% until Karak 8 Peaks is recaptured, which is way over here. Like it's pretty far away from him. I know we can see where the teleport is for that. Maybe we can hover over that really quick. Hold on. Yeah, way over here. Most of the time, and our Dwarf ally has that. So his campaign is kind of a pain in the butt. I really want to look at these because most of the time these are gone by the time you get there. Clan Morris likes to stick around a little bit more, but that doesn't matter. But you get the unique building chain available at Karak 8 Peaks. Starts with 4 of his ancestor heroes, who are all immortal and unbreakable, and they're ghosts. So they are kind of scary. You can hero stack and kind of be a threat the entire time. You pretty much have to build magical attacks to fight these guys. You get leadership +10 when laying siege or encircling, and Vanguard deployed during underway battles, and he gets a high ring decree. After that, the factions are the same exact thing. Still Grudge of Reckoning, still Great Book of Grudges, still has the Forge. The only difference is that upkeep. So you're pretty much going to be more of a skirmishing Dwarf faction because you get access to the Rangers, Bugsman Rangers. They're just cheaper. They're not really that great, personally. I think that's why a lot of people don't like his campaign. It's just upkeep increase her already expensive units, and his objective is across the entire world. You will have to fight orcs to get there. You will have to fight ogres because usually border princes are gone. Sometimes the elves over here, possibly Skaven. If the vampire coasts last long enough, they might become a threat to you. Most of the time they're not. And then pretty much taking out any remnants of Skaven or orcs in the area, possibly Khorne if he expands that far, possibly Tomb Kings. A lot more enemies, not necessarily an easier campaign. And he is kind of a weak legendary lord in my opinion. He does get the Shield of Defiance, which is like ward save +15, melee defense +6. Hammer of Angrund, control +3 for all provinces, post-battle loot 10%, magical attacks, weapon strength +10%, and Hammer of Angrund's ability. It's actually halfway decent. And then he does get Mighty Oath Stone and a more base weapon and melee attack. And he does start off with all his heroes. I guess that's one upside. I think it's a harder campaign. Honestly, I don't recommend this campaign. If you want challenge, go with Belegar. before I forget, he really doesn't have any allies in the area either. That's the kind of trait on top. He doesn't get help until way later on because Boar Princes just don't last long enough. Now on to Grombrindal, the White Dwarfs campaign. He starts all the way over here by a bunch of Dark Elves, Minor Skaven faction. Pretty much his campaign mechanics are evasion chance when using tunneling, 60% all characters, weapon strength plus 20% when fighting against elves, and call upon ancestor gods, which is pretty much just like turn mechanic. Every couple turns you'll be given an option to choose like I think between 4 buffs for your entire faction. Gets access to the Age of Reckoning, Great Book of Grudges, the Forge. Pretty much his initial enemies are Skaven. He wants to fight a bunch of Dark Elves, possibly Norskim, and Valkyria is in this area. Potentially Tomb Kings, even though majority of the time the Tomb Kings don't declare war on me, but they can. Beastmen do spawn here as well. He's a little bit more difficult of a campaign, but he's also a very strong Legendary Lord. Pretty much play just like any other dwarf, highly defensive, or you could build them highly offensive. Defensive is probably the best way to go. The AI doesn't really do a very good job with him, but he's not too bad of a campaign, but I would say he's a little bit more on the difficult side for dwarves anyways. Dwarves are a pretty easy faction.
Don't you fret, it's done.
But for his gear, he gets armor of Glimnar Scales, ward save plus 10%, melee defense plus 6, physical resistance 10%, wound recovery time -1, rune axe Grombrindal minus 5% upkeep, 10% battle loot, recruitment cost minus 10%, AP 13 in rune axe Grombrindal, which is 4 AP, and discourage, which is minus leadership. Cloak of Thalia, melee defense plus 6, physical resistance plus 5, spell resistance 25. Rune Helm of Stuffbar, no idea how he got it. We don't ask questions here. Armor 10, physical resistance plus 10, passive ability, Rune Helm of Stuffbar, which is just leadership plus 12 for everybody in range. So pretty much can make your highly ranked up doors pretty much unbreakable. And he gets more uses of this. The Grombrindal has no field, melee defense plus 24, unbreakable for all allies in range, lasts for 24 seconds. Just note you can't pop this when they're already routing. It doesn't bring them back, sadly. He does get reinforcement range plus 50% for his Lord's Army, leadership plus 10 for his Lord's Army, melee defense for Warlords and Iron Drake units. Overall, it's just kind of a fun campaign, I would say. Your main threat would probably be Valkyria and Malakai, pretty much. You don't really have any allies to start off here. Potentially Tomb Kings, they're just a really weird faction. Now on to Thorek Ironbrow. He's basically the juiced up rune lord. By far, probably one of my favorite campaigns. He is kind of part of the Thunderdome. But you're gonna see, you're gonna fight against vampire counts, some lizardmen, some high elves, or some wood elves, sorry. Greenskins, Skavens up here. Potentially Khorne, potentially Tomb Kings. Lots of enemies around him. His closest ally would probably have to be up here, Mr. High King, but it depends how fast they expand. It's not too bad. Kind of surrounded by enemies. The Scalies won't outright fight against you, but they could declare war on you, so kind of keep in mind. Your main enemy is pretty much going to be Skaven and Orcs. Or Skaven, that's a minor Orc faction. Skaven and Vampire counts pretty much early game. Although I have seen some Siege trickery too in this plateau. Before his faction, he gets Oath Gold from buildings, 20%. Oath Gold cost for crafted runes, minus 50. Your recruit rank, plus 5 for Runesmith, and upkeep, minus 25 for Runesmith heroes. He does have access to the Artifact Vault, which you're pretty much collecting unique artifacts, and it's just pretty much a super forge. You can get, I believe, a dinosaur out of it and a legendary ghost hero. Been a hot minute since I played his campaign. He does have access to the Age of Reckoning, Great Book of Grudges, obviously a normal forge. For his items, he gets Thorek's Rune of Armor. Nothing too crazy. Armor 15, fire resistance 15%, spell resistance 50%, passive ability of his rune armor, more flame resistance for everybody in range. Clad Brakak, which a bombardment nuke, if you will, who charges only when you're in melee though. Thundering Tax, which is minus 30 army, 30 armor, and Frenzy on him. So he is pretty much a good fighting rune lord. He does have a trait called the Old Ways Are Best. Armor 10 for Lord's Army. AP weapon damage plus 3 for Lord's Army. Reload time reduction for all artillery pieces. Oh, I'm sorry, grudge throwers, bolt throwers, and quarrelers. Overall, I actually think his campaign kind of easy because everybody's fighting everybody. So you're not really stuck out here by yourself because nobody likes each other here. So it's actually not that bad of a campaign. I'll probably put it in middle in terms of difficulty. Last, but certainly kind of not least, is Malakai Makaisson, another Slayer Dwarf Legendary Lord, who's I would best describe as the Dwarf Engineero Lord. He is a pseudo horde army. His faction's like that. Only he is like that. So pretty much once he's defeated, he still keeps all this stuff. It's honestly a really cool mechanic. He's all about buffing pretty much his range and his war machines. So that's flying machines, artillery. Just start off with Goldrick and Felix off the bat, so you don't have to do that silly little quest to get to him. He does have access to Malakai's Adventures after turn 5. In which case you activate like one at a time or as many at a time you want, and they'll buff your war machines, like giving cannons great shot, giving gyrocopters just spare stats overall. There's certain things to do, like fight a bunch of high elf army or dark elf and high elf armies that spawn, or kill a certain number of other factions. Does get access to the Age of Reckoning as well, at the Forge and Great Book of Grudges, like the other dwarves. The only problem with his start location, it is very, very tough. So tough that the AI almost never survives. He used to, and then they nerfed him. So he has a lot of minor chaos factions here that want to fight you. He could potentially fight Archaon pretty early, or Daniel, the demon prince of the demons. Lots of Norskins. Could potentially fight actually the Maggot Lord. He likes to go over. You have some Skaven off in the distance, some more Warriors of Chaos here. It's kind of bad because you're fighting on all fronts and you don't really have the income to support multiple armies like this. He is a harder faction to play. However, once he gets to a certain point, he can just start rolling because he has an ability that summons a gunship. If you build up a certain building all the way, it doesn't run away. So he does have the ability to summon gunships, or one gunship. He can build multiple, and he can buff those gunships too. Pretty much the best way to explain his Malakai's Adventures is it's like more of a passive workshop that improves pretty much the artillery pieces. I mean, you still have to do some objectives for it, but you're not actively like giving resources to research it. For his campaign, starts campaign with Gotrek and Felix, Malakai's Adventures, upkeep minus 15% for artillery and flying war machines for all armies, recruit rank plus 3 for all artillery war machines for all of the armies.
Slayer.
He does have Mackenzon's Swader, a casualty replenishment rate plus 8 for artillery war machines, weapon strength 20%, and his ability, which is a heal and a replenish ammunition if it's a artillery or war machine. It's very nice to have. Eyes of Grungi, income plus battle loot 15%. Ambush defense chance 15%, reload time reduction 10%, and Angrund ability, which is range plus 10, AP plus 10%, base damage 10% for everybody in range. He's the Slayer Master Engineer, so he does kind of pull a little bit from everything. So you could build a Slayer army if you want to, or you could build a artillery ranged based army. He will support pretty much both. He does get deranged munitions, which is magical attacks, AP plus 50%, base missile damage plus 50% for one ally. Just keep that in mind. He is unbreakable, of course, and he is a Slayer. Doesn't particularly do well in a fight, but he holds off better for a ranged Lord. Just don't let him see too much combat. Not a good idea. He's kind of a mixed feelings. I like playing his campaign because of the Malakai's Adventures boss, but it's a very tough campaign. I really can't recommend it if you play with Dwarves more. He is fun though. Yeah, I will say he is fun, unlike a certain other Lord. But kind of just to like recap the Dwarves really quick, they are a strong defensive faction with high armor units, high damage range, really good artillery, and war machines. Of course, if you guys have any different thoughts than what I said here, or any suggestions on how you would play these factions differently, please let me know in the comments below. I'm very interested in hearing that. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for notification when I go live, upload a video doing our shenanigans on YouTube, and of course, hit the notification bell to actually get notified of such shenanigans. YouTube hates me for odd reason.